Hello, today we're going to be talking about pathogen and host terms. Most of the emphasis is going to be on host terms because in a previous talk we discussed pathogen terms, but wanted to highlight one of the benefits of approaching sort of pathogen-host interactions from the ontology perspective we've adopted. Our research background here is the damage response framework, which provides background or like justification for approaching the following terms down here in a way that we can trust researchers will understand and likely use. So we'll start here with the damage response framework. So microbiologists and immunologists and other life science researchers, they've traditionally studied just one side of the host pathogen interaction. This is a common divide and conquer strategy. You think you want to investigate bacteria, you focus on bacteria, you hold that constant, you change other variables and you see what happens. Or you can do this from the other side. You can think about just the host's immune responses and how that leads to disease, how that relates to pathogenesis. And you can, examine how hosts and their immune systems respond to various sorts of invasions or attempted invasions. And that would be one side of the equation. Again, this is powerful. It's gotten lots of great results. Sometimes, though, it overlooks, full explanation of pathogen and host interactions should give pride of place to both sides, right? Recently, researchers have recognized the need for this complication of the picture, and this has led to the development of the damage response framework. This basically approaches interactions between hosts, immune systems, and pathogens with the following guidelines in mind. Namely, pathogenesis results from interactions between hosts and pathogens, and it's not attributable to either alone. Hosts and pathogens interact primarily through damage to the host, and host damage is a function of the intensity and degree of the host response and pathogen factors, each of which are determined by genetic and phenotypic profiles of the relevant entity. And this is our research conceit as we construct terms in the ontologies for hosts and pathogens. Following IDO, Vido adopts terms for both host and pathogen. Hosts bear a specific role. Remember, a role is contrasted to a disposition. This is a property that entities have. A standard example is going to be like a student. A student has a student role based on their enrollment and based on circumstances. They find themselves in, and they have various powers and stuff like that. This is in contrast to dispositions. Dispositions are about like they're born or like held in virtue of the material base of things. So the way you can see this is that a student might no longer be a student, but their material constitution be unaffected, right? This is not so if you think about properties that, say, salt might have. So salt is soluble. It dissolves in water. And if salt doesn't dissolve in water, then something has changed in its material constitution, right? So salt has this property, this disposition, and it is internally grounded. And this is in contrast to a role, which is, say, a student might have, that's, we say, externally grounded. So it's important to point this out. Hosts, they bear specific roles, and those are externally grounded properties. And these roles are borne by either an acellular structure, containing some distinct material, or an organism whose extended organism contains a distinct material entity. And these roles are realized, or like manifest, in use of the structure or organism as a site of reproduction or replication. Now, as a subclass, we have pathogen-host role. And this is a host role borne by an organism that has a pathogen as part of its extended organism. You can see the discussion of pathogen, a previous talk. This combination here completes this host side. It adds the host side to the pathogen side. So we have both aspects of this interaction. We're following this RDF conceit. We also have room to think about asymptomatic and symptomatic carriers. These are going to be hosts because we want to be able in the IDO COVID-19 and Vido and other ontologies to be able to talk about subclinical infections. This is coming up a lot with SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19. So we need these terms, right? So a subclinical infection, we're importing this from IDO. It's an infection that is part of an asymptomatic character or carrier, and carrier is a type of host. An asymptomatic carrier it's a pathogen host role It's borne by an organism whose extended organism contains a pathogen that has an infectious disposition towards the host, but importantly, the host has no symptoms of the infectious disease. Symptomatic carrier role, this is in contrast. Everything's the same except the host has manifested symptoms of the disease caused by the pathogen. Now, importantly, we need to say something or define what signs and symptoms are. We get this from the ontology of general medical sciences, so OGMs. We import this symptom, we import signs from this ontology because they already exist. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. And there's a difference here that's worth noting. Like medical researchers, they do distinguish between signs and symptoms. Now, roughly, signs are just objective indicators of health or disorder, like a broken bone or fever. And symptoms are subjective indicators, like pain, right? This is not something that your healthcare provider can, like, give you a test, like a thermometer, and check, right? Like, it doesn't know how much pain you're in. This is more subjective. And that's, roughly speaking, the distinction that OGMs follows and the one we follow as well. So the terms here that are relevant: qualitative sign, it's just an abnormal observable quality of a part of a patient that's hypothesized to be clinically relevant, and a processual sign, abnormal process or processual entity, that's like a process, something that happens over time that occurs in a patient that is also hypothesized to be clinically relevant. A symptom there, parallel, has the sort of subjective character, also hypothesized to be clinically relevant by a patient.